So, welcome everyone to Presentation Ideas, our European edition. So, our next presenter is Richard Goring. Richard's the director at Bright Carbon, this specialist presentation and e-learning agency, enjoys helping people create engaging content and communicating effectively using visuals, diagrams, and animated sequences that explain and reinforce your key points. He's supported by plenty of resources and tips at brightcarbon.com. And I'll turn it over to you and I'll shut down my camera.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Garland. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session today. Let's get going, I think, straight into it. I'm also going to turn off my camera. This is me. Hello. But the concentration here is going to be on the content and showing you lots of different bits and pieces. Any questions, please do ask, and we can pick those up as we go through, but also at the end as well. So let me know if there's anything you need. So with that, welcome to the playground of my imagination as we explore the world of presentation design. Now, good design is essential in all things. Something that's designed poorly won't be able to do its job correctly. And the same goes for presentations. So a presentation that looks like this just isn't going to engage your audience. You know, if you design like this, text heavy, bullet point slides, white background, random bits of clip art sprinkled on top, I mean, things like that should be relegated to the deep, dark depths of the past. Now, the chances are that if you've signed up to this session, you know, you're already on board with that idea. I mean, no one wants grim-looking content that's going to send your audience to sleep. The alternative is beautiful slides with eye-catching visuals that help illustrate the key points and content and also impress your audience. But of course, going visual with your content throws up a few problems of its own. Now, specifically, you might think, how do I make things look good? Moreover, what is good design? And it's a tricky question to answer, really, because visual trends come and go. What looks good is entirely subjective and can change from year to year. Do you go for sleek and corporate? Do you go for vibrant and colorful, or stripped down and minimalistic? From a design point of view, obviously. The simple answer is really none of the above. What instead you want to do is focus not on the objective, you want to focus on the objective rather than the subjective. And so you want to learn about the tried and true evergreen design fundamentals, you know, the most basic, useful kind of theories as they pertain to effective presentations, and think about how you can apply those. And then, because I live to give, I'll also throw in a few handy hacks to get you creating those kind of clean, well-designed pieces of content quickly and with the minimum of fuss. And so without further ado, I want to get into making something that looks beautiful. And I want to start with perhaps the most obvious thing to add to any slide to make it look better, and that is imagery. Now, imagery is a great way to enhance your content, not only because it looks nice, but also because it provides your audience with non-verbal content. You know, so here's a nice example, using a winding road to give the impression of the journey that you're going to take, which ties in neatly with the content on the timeline there, which is really good. Now, the idea of getting images is fine. I think everyone is probably on board with that, which is great. Then the question is, well, where do you get these images from? And so there are fantastic websites out there, things like unsplash.com, but also pexels.com. You've also got the likes of Every Pixel, or things like Pixabay. I mean, there are loads of these great websites. And what makes all of them really good is the fact that they all give you completely free, beautiful, high quality images for commercial use. So you can use them in any environment you like, and they work really very nicely. And there's a whole host of them. And I think Garland and Kurt will send out a PDF summary of the session today. So I'm going to go through things reasonably quickly, but you'll have the step-by-step guide of everything I'm going to cover and how you can do it. And it's got a list of all of these websites and a whole load more of places where you can find this beautiful imagery. Once you've got that, you then need to think about where you or how you use it. So here, for example, okay, a slide with 3 beautiful high quality images on it. Do you like that slide though? I mean, you can put 3 beautiful high quality images on there, but the way that it's done just doesn't work very well. It's not really very useful. I mean, for example, they're all different sizes. The cute little rabbit here is a different orientation to the cat and the dog. And so you've got things that aren't really going to work together. They're not kind of linked nicely. And so what you want to do instead is think about the way that you use and manipulate those images to bring your content to life a little bit more. So here, for example, this rabbit, well, you can try to make that a little bit closer to the other images so things tie together. So for instance, I'm going to click on this rabbit and go to the picture format tab on the ribbon, and over on the right hand side here you can choose the crop tool. Now crop, I'm assuming, is going to be pretty basic for all of you here, but just in case it's not, you can use these little black grab handles that appear, and you can now crop the image down so that it's not quite as different from the others. It's a similar-ish aspect ratio now. I mean, it's still not ideal in that it's not kind of quite perfect, so maybe there's other things you can do as well. And there are. So if you click on an image and again go back to the picture format tab and crop over on the right, rather than just using the regular crop function here, you can click on this little drop down. And what that does is it gives you the ability to crop to any of these standard shapes in PowerPoint. Now that's kind of interesting. So you can choose here this oval, for example, and now you've got kind of a circular shape. And then you can do the same thing for these as well. So let's select those and then do crop to shape and now do that. And you've got them all a little bit more similar. But actually these are ovals, and ovals are so very Victorian and look terrible. So I don't want to do that. And so again, you can go back to the picture format tab and crop and on the drop down here. And now you can choose aspect ratio. And that allows you to crop the image to a particular aspect ratio, any of these standard ones here, including this 1:1 square, which now makes your oval a perfect circle. And you do the same thing with the dog here as well, 1:1, and let's do the same thing with the rabbit, aspect ratio 1:1. Select all three of them, go back to the picture format tab, choose the same height and width for them all, so about 10 centimeters is probably okay. Line those up nicely like that. And so very quickly and very easily, you've now got them all to be consistent, and so it looks and feels much better than it did before. So rather than just getting these nice images and throwing them on the slide, consider their positioning and consider kind of how they look in relation to other images. So that's all very well and good. And now you've got this slide here. So here, these are all kind of laid out in a nice grid structure. They're not all the same, but I think that that's kind of fine. You know, this one here is a middling size, this one is the smallest, and this one is the largest, but they're all the same height. There's a consistency in terms of the gaps between them. It's to a grid structure. It's just not a universal grid structure. And we'll get onto grids in a moment. So it kind of, you look at it and you think, actually, you know what, that looks fine. It's clearly been done deliberately that they are of a different kind of size width because the heights are the same. The problem with these sets of images is that these two here are both focused closely on the device, whereas this one on the right is now showing you the entire environment that the device is in. So that needs to change. And again, you would use the crop tool to fix that. So you'd select this image on the right, go to the picture format tab on the ribbon and choose crop. Now what at this point you might do is use those black grab handles again to now crop down to focus on just the laptop there. But then you've got to kind of move this and you've got to resize it, and it won't quite work, and it's annoying. So rather than do that, I like to think of the crop tool not as a way to cut down an image, but instead as a way to view an image. It's a window through which you can see the image underneath. You see here that part of this image is already cropped out. And so what you can do is you can move an image within that crop window, and you can also resize an image within that crop window as well. So if you now make the image bigger using the white grab handles, you can now resize and reposition the image so that it focuses in on the laptop while still maintaining that crop window at the same size, so that now it all matches up together. So crop is a really powerful tool when it comes to manipulating imagery and making sure that it all works really nicely. Again, here's another quick example. You've got an image, you've thrown it in on the slide there, and it doesn't look great because it's very small. And so a nice graphic design technique is the idea of a full bleed image, or something that goes kind of edge to edge on the slide. And the more edges of the slide you can make it fill, generally the nicer it looks, or at least, you know, touching as many edges as you can. So here we've got this image, but you can't make it kind of full screen. So if you were to try, you know, obviously it interferes with the logo and it interferes with the title, so that doesn't really work that well. What you want to do is you want to make it go all the way to the right and all the way to the left, but maybe kind of get bounded by this white box here, so it doesn't go higher than that or doesn't go lower than that. And so again, you could try to resize it, and you can, you know, resize it like this, and you can do that. and make it go all the way to the edge, but now you've got to scroll down to crop, and then inevitably you go too far, and it's kind of frustrating. So again, this is where the crop tool comes to your aid, in that I would now open up crop, and this time, rather than reducing that crop window down on the image, increase the size of it. So you're increasing the size of the crop window, so it's now really large, and it's going to the edges of the slide, and it's going to the top and bottom of this white box. Now you have a small image within a large crop window. And then what you can do is go to the picture format tab, go to crop over on the right hand side, and use these two little functions here at the bottom, fill and fit. Fit will mean that the entire picture fits as much as it can do into that crop window, so it's as big as possible within the crop window while still seeing the entire thing. Or fill will mean that it fills the entire crop window and then some of the image is cut off. And now that's a nice way to make sure that you can choose very precisely where you want the image to be, and then you can fill that space with the image nice and easily. And so doing things like that, you have the ability to do all sorts of wonderful things with images. So here again, a pretty terrible looking slide because it's just all beautiful, high quality images, but they're just thrown on there randomly with a couple of points. But using exactly the same content, you can also transform it into something like this, which feels much more considered, looks much nicer and more professional as a result. And that kind of leads nicely onto the idea of using the images for more than just a backdrop. Let's think about using the images in a way to enhance your story as well. So here's another slide. Again, what do you think of this? It's a beautiful, high quality image, but it's just thrown on the slide there. It doesn't do anything. It's just trying to add some decoration. And that's not really helpful. And it doesn't do the decoration very well either. But instead, if you think about using the image to make it look nice, and also using the image to help tell the story a little bit more, you could transform it into something like this, where you are using the image to highlight the 20% of businesses that are connected to high-speed fiber broadband. It's almost as if in this office block, only 20% of the businesses have the lights on, for example. And again, that's all done very easily in PowerPoint using the crop tools and some of the other picture formatting tools available. So let's go back to this as the original slide here. First thing to do, let's make this full screen, so I can do that very easily because this has already been cropped down to that 16:9 aspect ratio, so it fills the screen nicely. The next thing to do then is I'm just going to copy the image and paste it. So you've now got two of them there, and then I'm going to line these images on top of each other like that, okay? So now you've got these two images there. What you now want to do is to select the top image and go to the picture format tab of the ribbon. And over on the left-hand side, you've got this thing here called color, where you can now apply a color wash over the image to make it any color you like. And I'm going to choose this kind of light gray color here on the bottom right, because that gives the effect of washing that image out into the background. It's not as prominent, even though it's actually in front of the other image, the one that's fully colored. And now if you open up crop again, and I've just got it here on my quick access toolbar there, but again, picture format tab and crop over here on the right, you can now crop this image down to remove about 20% of it or so, revealing underneath the other image, which is the full color version. And that's now using the image to give you that sense of proportion of the 20% of businesses that you want to highlight here. And then when you've got that image is now kind of a good backdrop for the slide and supporting the image. You can now deal with the text a little bit. So here I've got this text. This is 20-point font. That is normally perfectly fine on a slide if you're going to have a lot of text, which you really shouldn't. But if you're going to have a piece of text as part of a diagram, 20 points is great. But here, because there's no other content on the slide, it feels washed out. So I'm going to increase the size of that to maybe 40 points or so. Still keep it over 3 lines. So increase the size of the text box so that it fits nicely there. And now you've got things that feel much more in proportion. This doesn't look lost against that full slide with just the image. And then to finally tie this idea of the 20% text here to the 20% of the image, I'm just going to go to the Home tab and add in a basic basic triangle shape just here. Draw that. You can use this little grab handle at the top here to spin that around there like that, and then reposition this nicely so that you now get this sense of this here linking in with that part of the image. And if you want to really take it a little bit further, and why not, you can also go to the shape fill options, And rather than choosing a color from the standard bit here, you can tie the color of this into the color of this image by using this little tool here called the eyedropper. And what that does is it allows you to now pick out the prominent color from the image. So let's go for this kind of nice, vibrant gold color here like that. And now this whole thing links together really nicely because you've used some color from the image to link the whole thing together. And again, it's very quick, very easy and simple to do. Then you say, well, you can do other things using that same technique. So here again, a complex image, and then you can maybe highlight various people within it using that same idea of a grayscale image versus a cropped image and so on. And if you want to get really interesting, you can also start to think about other ways to manipulate images just using PowerPoint. So this image here, would you believe, is constructed entirely from these two pictures. And it's just using a couple of techniques and then building on what we've already looked at. So again, if you take a look at it here, this is the blank slide. What I'm going to do first of all is to copy this landscape picture. So I've got it in the clipboard, I've used Control and C. And then I'm going to make this full screen. So again, just fill that out in the background there. Then you've got this image of the hand. Let's make that a little bit larger, put it into the bottom corner there like that. And you think, oh, that looks terrible. And you're right, it does, because you've got this annoying kind of white backdrop for the image here. Now, this idea of an isolated picture is very common. You know, it's a picture that's isolated against the background. So someone has used, you know, a sophisticated tool like Photoshop or whatnot to put it onto a solid white or a solid black background. If you have an image like that, you can get rid of that background very easily in PowerPoint by selecting the picture, going to the Picture Format tab on the ribbon, and over on the left-hand side, again, using that color option, instead of giving it a funky color wash, which you don't really want, you can use this tool at the very bottom here called Set Transparent Color. And what that does is if you click on any color in the image, that one single color will now become transparent. So it disappears. And so now you get that effect of, you know, viewing the image behind the phone screen here. Now again, that doesn't quite work. You want this kind of idea of the phone taking the picture and then the image in the background being kind of blurred, that kind of sophisticated bokeh effect that you get on kind of good quality cameras. So to do that, I'm going to now select this background picture, go to the Picture Format tab, and just next to color on the left is this thing here called Artistic Effects, which gives you about 20 different ways to completely ruin your image. I mean, why would ever want inverse neon? I have no idea, other than perhaps if you wanted to say you went to Mordor. I mean, who knows? But there is this one tool over here on the right, second from the top, called Blur, which is really nice because it, well, blurs the background, which is really useful. And that now gives you that idea of the image being kind of blurred into the background. Then you can paste using Control and V, because that's the image that I copied before. And I'm now going to move this so that it fits just over the phone screen like that. Let's position it there. I'm going to use the Picture Format tab over here on the right to send this backwards in the layers. So you send backwards, and it now goes behind the phone screen. And then you can use Crop just to trim off the edges so that this now fits nicely within the bounds of the phone. And so now you've got that nice kind of sophisticated element of, I'm taking a picture of this landscape, and then you can kind of get a sense of the landscape in the background. And so this is all done using very quick, very simple PowerPoint techniques, and it works really very nicely indeed. All right.
Richard,
so yes.
Miguel had a question. He was just asking about the jagged borders on that, like jagged bounders.
Yes, that is a little bit annoying. I think I've done something really stupid, and I have saved this file while compressing images, as opposed to using the full high resolution version. Because if you see this one, which is exactly the same picture, this time it doesn't have the jagged borders quite as much. Now, it isn't perfect. If you're really keen, you can see that there's a little bit of a white outline, which is annoying. But if you think about the fact that it's a one-click kind of deal and it's done, then it's quite good. If you were mega keen on it, you could select this here. Let's try it, because you can just about see this little kind of border there. Go to the Picture Format tab, and there's a thing over here on the right called Picture Effects. And here you've got something called soft edges. I would never normally recommend you use soft edges. But what it can do is it can just ever so slightly take the edge off that. So you might want somewhere between 1 and 2 points or so, and it just gets rid of that tiny little white border outline. If you try it on this one here, which is worse, again, picture format, picture effect, soft edges, that kind of gets rid of it a little bit. So it's again, it's not perfect, and I've made it quite large here, so maybe you wouldn't get away with it, but for something a little bit smaller, you absolutely would, and that kind of thing is then probably fine.
Richard, wanted to mention as well, your audio sounds a bit wobbly, like just a little bit underwater or something. I don't know if it's something you can do a quick fix on, or if it's...
That is very curious. Okay, let's give it a go to see if I can use a different audio source.
Okay, so how does that sound? Is that any better?
I think that's better. That's clearer. And
Yep.
Marsh, you raised your hand. Did you have a question? Did you want to put it in the chat, or? Yeah, people say it's better now, so good. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Right, so that's kind of dealing with imagery. Now let's take a look at white space. I can't believe that we've been going for, what, 20 minutes or so, and we've not yet covered white space, which is kind of critical in pretty much all elements of design. Now, the idea of white space is something you've probably heard of, but it's an idea of having content or having a lack of content in places so that the eye can focus on what's important. So here we're kind of directing the audience's attention to the white space on the left, but actually in this case white space is perhaps a misnomer. You should think of this in terms of negative space instead, and the negative space on this slide is actually this image in the background, because that is not useful. So you're directing people's attention with the arrow over on the left, and then the relevant content as part of the diagram comes up here on the left there. So here the white space or negative space is really on the right there, because everyone's attention is going to be drawn to this space here. And so it's a really useful way to be able to focus attention on the relevant parts of a slide, as well as making things feel and look more luxurious as well by having the space around it. So white space is a great tool that you can use to transform really terrible slides like this, and without changing any of the content at all, transform it into slides that look like that. And so largely we've got the idea of, well, some font hierarchies going on, but largely that change is driven by the idea of white space. So this here technically has a lot of white space, in that there is a lot of space around that is white. But as I said, that's not really what the term means. It's more about this negative space. It's areas that you aren't going to be drawn to look at. So how would you transform this slide? Well, there's a couple of things to do. The first thing that's probably the most obvious and maybe irritating some of you already is this idea of the text, because this text is horrible because someone has decided in their infinite wisdom to use Comic Sans, which everyone knows is the best presentation font. No, clearly not. Okay, so you change that. So I'm going to select the drop down here to change the font. Let's use something better like a Sago UI, for instance, a nice kind of clean classic font there, which is great. So that will hopefully stop offending people, which is good. But let's get onto something kind of more useful, which is actually the image here. So I talked about the idea of using using the kind of the full bleed image. So I'm going to use that same crop technique here. So you can crop this out, go to the picture format tab, crop, and then do fill, and there you've got your image in its full bleed all the way through. But it's like, it's not quite right, because here the focal point of the image is this watch face, and that is now in the middle of the slide, which might normally be fine, but that doesn't leave you a lot of room for your content. So you've got text over here on the left, and again, you can do much better things than just text, but let's go kind of through the basics first of all. And so that means that the text is now squashed in this space. And so instead of that, what I would do is open up crop, and this time increase the size of the image and then shift it around a little bit so that that focal point of the image is now shifted over to the right, which leaves you all of this space over here on the left, which is the negative space where you can put additional content. So that, just by shifting the perspective of the image, kind of gives you a lot more space to work with. And now you've got your text here, and again, let's just deal with text because I suspect a chunk of you will have to. That's kind of fine, but it's a little tricky to read because, you know, this doesn't have high contrast just here, or this down here, the notifications text doesn't have much contrast because of the shadow. So you think, well, let's try changing the color of it. And that gives you good contrast in the dark areas, but poorer contrast in the light areas. And so what you should probably do is add in an extra area of contrast. So I'm just going to draw a box that sits kind of nicely, roughly there or so is good. Again, use those layer functions to send this backwards, and now you've got better contrast for the text there. The problem with that is that it's a solid color block, and which is generally fine, but in this case, you lose that sense of white space a little bit. So now you can right click on this image and choose Format Shape from the pop-up menu. And here you can use the fill options on the right-hand side to use this little transparency slider at the bottom here and just add in a small amount of transparency. And usually somewhere between 20 and 30% works quite nicely to give you that little bit of the image in the background, just so there's now a continuous flow across the slide, so it feels kind of more linked up and a bit more together. So already we're looking a little bit better. And now you need to think about how you treat this text at all. So you've got this text, which is, again, like not great, but if you were to have text, this is a bit too much. So thinking again about using the idea of kind of focal points and kind of negative space to draw people's attention to what's important, you've got either a paragraph of text at the top here, which is more about the philosophy of how this thing works, or you've got some bullet points at the bottom here, which is more about the features. So which of these is more important? Because I suspect one of them for your story is going to be more important than the other. Now, it doesn't matter which one it is in this case, you could choose either, but I'm going to say, let's go for the bullet points here because you want to talk about the features of it. So in this case, let's take this text and drop that text size down. Now, what I'm going to do is take it from 28 point font and then drop it down probably 2 points to 20. And I've done that very deliberately because if you go to this drop down here, you can see that you've got all of these different font stops, as I call them. So you've got 28 points there. If you go down 1, 2 of those, what you get is sufficient hierarchy to make you realize that this text here is clearly different from that text there. If you were to only go down 1 point like that, there's not quite enough of a difference for you to realize that they are different. It just looks a little bit odd. So the idea of having this kind of move down at least 2 font stops, so from 28 down to 20, or from 20 down to 16, for example, just gives you that sense of hierarchy and makes it much easier to see what's important. The other thing to think about with text is that this is all centered, which is fine if it's a couple of words, but not if there's a lot of text here. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, and then under the paragraph spacing over here on the left, you can use this little left bit here to now left align the text, and that becomes much easier to deal with. I also want to resize this box as well. You see here that this kind of stretches out to the full width of this space, which I don't really want. So let's resize it so that now maybe you spread this nice and evenly over 3 lines instead of it being over, say, 2.5. And then you can reposition this text so that it fits nicely within that space just there like that, so that it's kind of nice and centered. It gives you a good kind of border around it. In fact, you know what we should probably do is line this text up here with the text in the title like that, and maybe just reposition this a little bit so you've got a nice consistent border around the object like that there. And then you kind of think, well, that's kind of reasonable. You've got this sense of text hierarchy, you've got a nice consistent border around it. It works okay, but still glaring you in the face here, staring you in the face there, is the bullet points. And everybody hates bullet points. And even though you've got a lot of text, you still get rid of the bullet points because people think bullet points are bad. So if you do get rid of the bullet points, that makes people feel better, but you've still got the same amount of text, and it's still kind of, it's in fact even more difficult to read now. So what I would also recommend you do, if you do want to get rid of bullet points, a nice trick here to fool people into thinking they aren't there, is to select this text and use the line spacing or the paragraph spacing in PowerPoint to now separate those out so that you've now got kind of a bigger distance between them, so it's clear that there are these 4 different elements. And then to make it very obvious, I'm just going to draw a simple line that goes in between them all. Let's draw that white there like that. Let's copy paste that and copy paste that. And so now you've got this sense here of you know, these key kind of points here, they're separated out. You've got some nice kind of white space over on the left for that content to go in, and you've got the focal point on the image on the right-hand side there to deal with. So it's like little tweaks here and there, combining a lot of these techniques can really bring your content to life and make it work that much nicer.
Richard,
But
we had a
that's
couple of questions if you can
Oh,
take them.
yes, please.
One of them was, can you kindly list down the free to use website for sharing photos mentioned? Was that the stock photos maybe?
Yeah, so there are a couple of different image sites that you can use. And again, these will all be in the PDF that you can get at the end.
Okay.
You've got Unsplash,
Okay.
Pexels, Every Pixel,
Okay.
and Pixabay. And again, there are loads of them out there. And I think there's maybe a dozen or so in the PDF that Colin will send you at the end as well.
Great. And there was one more question. Let's see. Johnny Quinn says, can you explain how you created the animated infographics at the start of your presentation?
You mean these little, yes. It's all in PowerPoint. So these are little elements that we've drawn. You can see that you can kind of break these apart into constituent elements, because, you know, why wouldn't you? These are all things that you can kind of recolor however you want. And then we've just used quite a lot of animation to then bring that to life, because we like to play with it. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, clearly, to be able to build all of these things out. But once you start to use PowerPoint and really push it, this is all standard PowerPoint, you can start to bring a lot of the content to life really very nicely. I don't want to get distracted today on that. I'm really sorry. If you want to, feel free to get in touch, contact details at the end. And also every Thursday, pretty much, we do similar kinds of sessions to these. So little 30-minute short webinar masterclasses on a lot of different topics. And animations is one of the ones that we frequently bring up to show you how to build a lot of that kind of content as well. Okay. Right, let's get on to the next kind of key element, which is grids. So again, it's another design fundamental that's really necessary to bring content to life. So if you've not heard of the idea of grids, you've almost certainly heard of the idea of the rule of thirds from photography. And that is essentially a 3x3 grid. Now, if I turn the grids on in PowerPoint here, you go right-click on this menu, right-click on the blank part of the slide, choose Grid and Guides from the pop-up menu, and here you can show guides. And now you see I've got these kind of guidelines up here, which give me a 3-column and 3-row grid, or a 3x3 grid structure. And if you can use a grid, it's a really nice way to be able to align all of your content. It makes everything look and feel much nicer. So here, for example, we've got a slide where you've got the initial element, a second element, a third element, and that is all done in a 3-column grid structure. Everything is lined up and it's nice and neat. Here, we've gone for a slightly different grid structure in that we've kind of got a 4-column grid structure. You've got an image element over here on the right in a 4th column, and then you've got 3 columns with kind of regular content. And those are all kind of nice, neat, straight lines, but here we've still got a grid structure of sorts in that we've split it up into that 3x3 kind of element, but this time, instead of just having a solid kind of vertical line, we've put it at an angle, because again, you can get away with that, you're just giving the impression of the grid. So you can think very carefully about the grid, and then if you deliberately break it and tweak it somewhat, then at least it's considered and you've chosen a nice way of doing it. So a grid structure is a really valuable way to be able to lay content out. So how do you add them in there, and how can you make it work? You know, here, for example, we've got a nice looking image again, a couple of points, but this slide doesn't work at all because it's not working to a grid. Everything is misaligned. So this text here doesn't line up with that text there. This image doesn't line up with that. There's just nothing kind of works. But again, you can take exactly the same content and using a grid structure of a simple 3x3, you can transform it to this, where the image here takes up the top 2 rows and the entire width of the slide, and the text takes up the bottom third of the rows. And then you've got, again, that split into the 3-column structure. And again, that's all done very easily using grids. So here you can see I've got a grid structure kind of built in already. And in fact, this is a slightly different grid structure in that it's not only using that basic classic 3x3, but it's also adding in a space for a header at the top, and it's adding in margins and gutters, they call them, this kind of spaces between the grids. So adding in a grid is very easy. Let's go to this here. And as I said, you can right click, you can choose grid and guides, and you can show the guides there. And then once you've got the guides, these little gray guides here can be moved around. So you can move those around and you can create kind of any grid structure you like. You can add new guide elements by holding the control key and simply dragging. So you do a copy drag, which also works for content as well, something like that. And if you've created too many, you can simply get rid of them by dragging them off the edge of the slide there like that as well. Now that's great for these kind of gray grid lines here, but that means that you can move them. So if you do create a 3x3 grid, you can accidentally move it and you think, oh, that's annoying. I've now got to reposition it back. There's no undo function with this. I've also got these little orange lines here, but I can't move those at all. And that's because these orange guidelines here are created in the slide master. So at that point, it might be useful to set a grid for your entire slide deck that people can't move. And so here you go to the View tab on the ribbon to do this, Slide Master over on the left, and now you come into your Slide Master view. You go to your main slide master there, and now in exactly the same way, you can do the same copy drag as you did before by just adding in these different guidelines. And now all of these will apply to all of the slides using that particular slide master, which is very useful. Now, shameless plug alert, I'm going to talk about this tool in just a second, but it would be remiss if I didn't do this here. The idea of adding in this grid structure, particularly anything complicated, is really annoying because PowerPoint only shows you the relative position on the slide like that, and you've then got to work out all of the percentages and stuff, which is frustrating. So at Bright Carbon, we've created our own add-in called Bright Slide. So it's kind of expanding and enhancing the capabilities of PowerPoint. It's completely freely available. You can go to the Bright Carbon website and download it, and it's just got a lot of different tools in it that we use as a design studio to create presentations. I'll go through a couple of the other bits in just a second, but here specifically, we've got tools to manipulate the file and the slide master, including guides. And so you can now choose to create guides, and you can do that either to the normal view, the kind of the regular editing view, to a specific layout, or to the slide master. And so if you wanted to create a different grid structure on the slide master here, you can just do add to master. That will bring up this little pop-up window here, which allows you to then choose what size margins you have, top, bottom, left, and right, how many columns there are, how many rows there are, what guttering there is. And so it could be you say, actually, you know what, I want a 6x6 grid structure, and it will do it for you automatically. Or a 12x6 might be worthwhile, and you can get rid of the gutters or not as you see fit. So you can manipulate all of this really very nicely. Okay, and now it's done for you automatically. It saves a boatload of time and is well worth getting if you are frequently creating slide masters or slides where you want to add in that grid structure. Okay, so then getting back to it and using the grid structure, again, it's really very simple and easy. I'm going to select all of these text points here. Let's get rid of the bullet points because those don't really work. Let's reposition those roughly in their little spaces down here at the bottom. Let's get this image here. Let's again use that crop technique to open up and expand the crop. Go back to the picture format tab, crop, and do fill so that it fills that space nicely. Reposition it kind of as you see fit. That probably works there like that. And then take all of this content here. Let's select these, make them all a little bit larger so they're all the same width. Let's move these so they all line up nicely with those guidelines. Let's perhaps center them, so align them like that there. Center them in the middle. Let's use center text there. And you know what? I am going to reduce the size of this here a little bit as well, just to give you text over 2 lines. So again, you've got some kind of nice space going along here. And we probably need to create a small little bar here at the top, which is going to have space for the title. And again, you right click, do format shape and the transparency. So all of this is stuff that we looked at before. Send that to the back there. And so very quickly, you've now created that nice, neat structure just using a grid. So grids are really valuable along with the idea of white space, along with the idea of images to bring your content to life a lot more. And
So
then
Richard,
yes,
we do have a question from Noah. It was, can you please tell us again where your webinars take place on Thursdays?
The Bright Carbon website, and we use Zoom just like this. So go to brightcarbon.com/events, I think, and there you'll see a list of all of the ones that we have coming up,
Great.
which should be nice and easy. Cool. All right, so here I just wanted to briefly mention this idea of add-ins again, just because I think it will be really useful for presentation design. And shameless plug alert, I'm going to talk about this Bright Slide add-in that we have. So as I mentioned, Bright Slide is this add-in for PowerPoint that just allows you to do lots of different things. And so you can really bring your content to life. We have all sorts of functions around the alignment tools, for example, and different typography spacing. So if you wanted to, add in kind of text here, for example, and maybe you've got that over kind of several lines as well, you can do things like live character spacing, where again you get a little button kind of coming up like this, and that allows you to spread that out as you see fit. Or it might be that you wanted to use live paragraph spacing, and again you get the same little tool here which allows you to spread that out, and you can also choose to apply this to all text boxes on that slide, or all text boxes through the entire presentation if you wanted to. We've also got little tools here that allow you to, I think someone mentioned it in Simon's session, do things like table format painting. So you can format a table and then paint the formatting from one to another. So all sorts of different bits and pieces, it's well worth checking out. But here, for example, I've got an image. I've talked about the idea of making that image full screen all the time and using the crop tool. And so you crop it and then you do fill and whatnot. But again, rather than do that, because it's lots of steps, we've got this tool here called Match Size, which could allow you to match lots of different objects to lots of different sizes. Or I can just do Match Slide in a single object, and it now fills the slide with that image. So that can work out well. Again, we've got the idea of the guide structure here, so you can choose whatever guide you want. So there's lots of different tools there that, and we've designed it, as I said, purely for our own designers, just to kind of help everyone overcome the frustrations that we have with PowerPoint. And then we thought actually it works quite nicely. So we share it with the community, people just like you that are creating presentations, and it's well worth checking out if you like. It's a free little download, and it just adds this extra bar into your presentation. So hopefully, or into your PowerPoint. So hopefully that will be valuable to you all. Right, so once you've got this idea of kind of using images like that, you can then build out a lot of content. I'm thinking, let's jump down. We've kind of covered a lot of tech stuff already. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to skip over that because I really wanted to get into the idea of using kind of color content a little bit more. I think that will be more valuable, because there's quite a few questions I think going to be coming in too. So here we've got the idea of using colors, and colors are very valuable tools to convey stories, but also to support branding. And you want to make sure that the colors you're using work consistently across not only your presentations, but across the entire company. And so setting up a color scheme in your deck is really very valuable. And so this is where using theme colors comes in. So here I've got a whole load of icons. And if I were to select any of these and just go to the fill options, you can see that all of these icons are the same color as these theme colors here. Okay, so that's a nice consistent way of using the colors that you've built into your PowerPoint template. The other nice thing about using theme colors is not only is everything now consistent, but if you do need to change those theme colors, change your branding or something in the future, you can change your theme colors and all of your content will change automatically as well. So if you go to the design tab on the ribbon up here in PowerPoint, over on the right-hand side, there's this little drop down for variants, and here you can choose colors. At this point, you've got a whole load of color themes that you could potentially apply. And if I just hover over them, you see as I'm previewing them, all of the colors of all of the objects on the slide there are changing colors to match the new theme, because I have colored all of these objects using those theme colors. And now you see that's changed and all of these match as well. So it's a really neat way of making sure that you can change all of your content really quickly if you do decide to rebrand from pink to orange or whatever it happens to be. To set your theme colors is really very easy as well. Again, you go to the design tab on the ribbon, variants on the right and colors. And now down at the bottom here, choose customize colors. And so at this point, you get a list of all of the different colors that you've got in that color palette. You've got a few options here at the top for your text and background colors, dark and light. And then you've got 6 accent colors. Now it says accent, but these are actually the main colors that you will be using all of the time. So any smart art or graphs or charts will all use these 6 colors. So these are your primary colors. These here are used for things like default text and default background shades as well. And if it says dark, use a dark color. If it says light, use a light color, because PowerPoint thinks that it would use those to provide you with decent contrast. So choose colors wisely. And then if you want to choose a color, you can click on the little drop down next to any of these palettes here, and you can go to more colors here, and then that will bring up either a kind of set of standard colors or the color wheel option here, where you can type in an RGB value or an HSL. And I think you should be able to, oh, and there's the hex colors as well if you need those. So you've got all of these different options to be able to choose, you know, whatever color you like. So let's go for a vibrant pink or purple like that there, and then choose OK. And you now see that that changes in here and it's changed there. You can also save this whatever you want. So let's call this, I don't know, colorful perhaps, and save. Not only does that save into your file, but it's now also in your list of custom color options as well. So you can choose that at any point and apply that to any of your slides, which can work really nicely. And if you are in a situation where you're using these kinds of things frequently, and you want to use colors quite a lot, then you've got other options to be able to manipulate colors too. So I talked earlier on about using the color picker tool in PowerPoint. So select any object, go to the shape fill functions. Here you've got your standard colors, but you've also got the little eyedropper, which allows you to choose any color from anywhere on the slide. It's a bit annoying because it doesn't allow you to choose a color outside of the slide. Oh, I say that. Oh no, it doesn't allow you to choose a color outside of PowerPoint. So if, for example, I were to bring up let's bring up the Right Carbon website, because someone asked earlier about the Masterclass events. So here I've got Right Carbon website, there's events, here's all the events that we've got coming up, so you can sign up for any of those. Okay, so let's just put these side by side here. If I were to now try and choose the Bright Carbon kind of pink from this here, let's again go to fill colors, eyedropper, and then it stops. It doesn't allow you to go outside of PowerPoint, which is annoying. However, the hack here is that if you click your mouse button and hold it down whilst somewhere on the slide, then you can move over and now you can choose any color you like, and then you can get the Bright Carbon pink. What is it about live demos and they're not working? Normally that should work and it should fill this color in. So clearly something has gone wrong and I will report a bug with it, which is frustrating. But normally you get it and then you can pick the RGB value from that if you wanted to apply that and so on. If you don't have Office 2013 or later, which is where you get this, you can also use something called Pixar, which is another little add-in tool, which is really useful to, again, pick up colors. And if you want to use professionals to come up with color palettes for you, then Adobe is a great way of doing it. If you go to color.adobe.com, you get this great website here, which will generate color palettes for you automatically, and you can choose, you know, particular colors that you like, and it will automatically generate kind of nice, neat color palettes, and you can play around with things until it creates a palette that you kind of really like. So that again can work really very nicely to generate your own color palettes that you can apply to your presentations. And then, sorry, was there a question there? Can you please just, not sure what the question is there, maybe Garland, if you can take a look at that, but a question coming in just about the colors here. But then once you've got that and you think about the use of colors in presentations, it's not just about making things consistent, but you can also use color for storytelling. A really great way of doing that is the idea of using a heat map, for example. And so here we've got lots of different colors, but the colors mean something now. So they're adding something to the story by using this heat map structure. And again, that's nice and simple to do, all using PowerPoint. So let's go to a blank version of the slide. If you wanted to create this kind of heat map setup, how would you do it? Well, the first thing that I want to do is to draw that, that shape. So I'm going to draw this kind of right-hand triangle here. Draw that here like that into the space. Now, the annoying thing about a right angle triangle is that it will only have the right angle on the bottom left. So what you now need to do is go to the Shape Format tab and choose Rotate up on the right-hand side here and then choose flip horizontal. And that now flips the shape around so the right angle is over on the right. And because we're going for a metric with kind of poor on the left and better on the right, which is typically kind of how you read things in a Western environment, you want the lower element to be at the bottom on the left here, and you want the higher element at the top to be on the right. So that's why you flip it around. Then what I want to do is to add in a gradient to start giving you that heat map idea. And so again, you can go to the shape format tab and you can do shape fill. And here you've got all of your different colors. But rather than choosing a standard solid color, you can also choose gradients down here at the bottom. And what that does is it gives you all sorts of different options to add in a gradient. And I'm going to choose this one over here on the left, which is just a nice kind of linear thing from a lighter color on the left to a darker color on the right. And that's kind of fine, but it's not the heat map color that you want. So again, you can go back to the shape fill and gradient, and this time choose more gradients, and that will bring up the shape format options on the right, including these gradient tools down at the bottom. Now, the main gradient tools that you really want to focus in here is this little slide tool here called gradient stops, because now you can manipulate what the gradient looks like. So you can select any of these different gradients. So I'm going to select maybe this one over here on the right, and you can do things like change the color of it. So you can choose a little color drop down, and you can now maybe make that a red color. So that gives you that sense of kind of red over here on the left. Then you can select the middle one, and you can choose maybe a kind of an orange color. And then you can choose the top one, and I'm going to choose the kind of the corporate teal blue. And actually, I quite like the idea of that, because in creating the gradient from the orange to the teal blue, it already goes through green. So, you know, maybe you can have that as a nice kind of gradient through green and then into blue, which is our corporate color, which is the best one. But if you didn't want that, you could again choose green, and it gives you that same sense all the way through. So you've got that kind of gradient structure, which works nicely there. Then you think, well, I want to add a little bit more to it. So you can now draw a line just to kind of give it some base like that. Change the color of the line like that there. I also want to add in some little kind of metric lines here, just to kind of give you a sense of where you are on the scale. And what I'm going to do here is do a copy drag, so pressing and holding the control key and also the shift key, so that it copies the object in line with the original. And then if you redo that by using Control Y, we've got there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Not got quite enough. Tell you what, I'm going to expand that out to the edge, select all of these, and then use the alignment tools, which are in the Home tab, and then Arrange, and then Align, and you can do Distribute horizontally to evenly space these out. So you've now got that sense of what is going on there. You've now got that sense of all of these kind of evenly spaced out like that. So that gives you your kind of your deciles there. And then to really kind of bring this home to show kind of where we are in it, I'm going to draw one more line roughly there. Let's make that larger. Let's make that dark. You can change the weighting of it to make it nice and thick. You can also change what the end style is as well. So I'm going to maybe choose an end point. So the end arrow type is going to be a little rounded dial like that, for example. And now this can be your little slider. And so you've got that kind of nice and neatly there. And then you can say, well, I want this percentage here to reflect those colors. So again, you can go to your fill options and choose more fill colors and select just close to that there like that. And now it colors that in. And then again, I'm going to do that copy drag technique. So select all of this, do a copy drag using the control and the shift key, and another copy drag using the control and the shift key. And let's maybe move that up to there like that. And let's maybe move that up to there like that. And this can be, say, 54%, and this can be, I don't know, 88% or something like that. And again, select these and do your eyedropper color like that, and then do your eyedropper color like that. And you can see how very quickly you can build all of this content up just using those simple techniques and a couple of kind of shortcuts there to then create this sense of kind of a visual sequence for the colors and kind of getting them to mean something. The same is also true with charts. I mean, colors in charts are really valuable. Here we've got a standard bar chart, and it's using the standard default colors in this color scheme, which is fine, except for the fact that you're talking about your company here, Link Pro, this made-up company, which is in this darker blue, and then competitor A and competitor B in the lighter blue and the purple. But your competitors are now in a more vibrant color than you are, which means that you don't stand out as much, which is annoying. So instead, let's think about the colors. So this is a live bar chart in PowerPoint. It's driven by Excel. I'm going to select the chart, specifically select the blue bars here. So you can just click on the chart, click on that data series, and you can change the color in exactly the same way that you would do anything else. So now I'm going to change the color there to the much more vibrant teal, which is the main company color. And because in this instance, you're comparing yourselves with the rest of the market, maybe you can change all of these to just kind of shades of gray so that it's giving you a sense of kind of standing out a little bit more from the competition like that. So, you know, two slightly different shades of gray there, but that's okay because it's now, well, here's, you know, us compared to the rest of the marketplace out there. So again, using color in that way kind of really brings the content to life really very neatly.
Richard, we had a question from
Yes.
Warren. If you can take it. He says, your thoughts on line build rather than bullets?
Say that again.
Your thoughts on line build, L-I-N-E, build, rather than bullets. I wonder if he was talking about when you were doing that one where you turned the bullets into, you know, into something where you had lines dividing.
Oh yeah, this.
Maybe that one, I think, yeah.
Maybe. Honestly, it's a cheap trick. I don't like it. I don't like bullet points. I don't think they're a great way to communicate in a presentation. I think that they work nicely for a document. It's perhaps an unnecessary faff because these, you know, if I were to add in something else, and then that goes over 2 lines, now it doesn't work because the lines here don't track with the text in PowerPoint. They could do it in other programs, but not in PowerPoint. So it's not kind of really very useful if you're using PowerPoint to create a document, but it does look different and it's not bullet points. And I think just for the sake of the fact that it's not bullet points, people like it and it looks a little bit different. But in a presentation, I wouldn't do that. I would instead use more visual sequences, which is the last little bit here, just to think about now using visuals a little bit better. So to build up, you know, this is the kind of thing that we've just looked at. So it's, you know, elevating you to new heights. Let's get an image in the background that gives that sense of elevation. But now you're kind of drawing off that, and then, you know, you've got a few points there. It's text-based. Let's think about, are there better ways of doing it? If you were to have a bar chart, for example, showing an increasing amount of data, you could show a bar chart, or maybe you can use an image to do something in a little bit of a different way. So here you've got the sense of kind of increasing. When the numbers are increasing, it's not actually a bar chart, it's a picture of the advertising boardings from a subway station, but now it's giving you that upward sense, that upward trajectory, that trend, which is, I think, probably fine to do. It's a little bit different. Or again, you know, you can transform a slide like this with bullet points and a few charts and whatnot into something which is much more cohesive, where you're getting a sense of, well, you know, what are we doing? In 2018, we only had a 20% uptake of something. So you're now highlighting 2 people in 10. But then because we engage with all of these different partners, we are now seeing, you know, a year later that we're expecting an 80% uptake. And so we've now just taken all of this content, copied it into the speaker notes here like that, and you've now got a much more visual sequence where you've got very little text on the slide at all to be able to get that point across. And again, this is all just kind of standard PowerPoint. There's some animations to kind of build that to life, bring that to life a little bit, but you can use animations to kind of build that up really neatly and really easily by using kind of more visual storytelling techniques. And again, if you want kind of more stuff on visuals, I think that's maybe one of the topics that we're covering in the next presentation ideas conference in the fall, which is at a later time zone, but well worth staying up for in your evening if you are in Europe or somewhere else in the world to take a look at. But again, thinking about those visual storytelling techniques, or in the meantime, check out the Bright Carbon website for a lot of that kind of stuff as well. So there's lots of really cool things that you can do. Anyway, we are now at the top of the hour, so super quickly, I'm really sorry, I'll finish. Shameless plug alerts. These are all the things that we do at Bright Carbon. So we spend our time creating presentations, e-learning, animations, and infographics. If you would like any help with any of those, please do feel free to get in touch. But more specifically, because I suspect you are all content creators too, because we are spending our time doing all of these, we love to create lots of free resources and tutorials and share really great things. So if you go to the Bright Carbon website, brightcarbon.com, there you'll find lots of amazing resources exactly like this and all sorts of other cool things as well as of course checking out all the other great people that you've seen presenting today. If you do want that add-in, that Bright slide add-in that I mentioned, the design productivity one, you can go to brightcarbon.com/brightslide. And then if you would like to get in touch, please do feel free to do so, info@brightcarbon.com, or follow us on the Twitter @brightcarbon as well. Thank you so much, Need, for joining. Thank you to Kurt and Garland for hosting and for putting this on to Presentation Point. You guys are absolutely amazing for bringing everyone together like this. It's a huge amount of work, so thank you there. And if you haven't done already, check out the Presentation Point website, because it's also cool. The kind of things that the team there do are amazing. If anyone has any questions, please do feel free to chat now, or as I said, happy to follow up at any point later on. Thank you very much indeed.
That was fantastic, Richard. One of our students says, hands down, the best PowerPoint design class I've ever seen, including many years attendance at Presentation Summit in the US. So, and everybody else was like, thank you, excellent, very helpful, amazing amount of great tips. So yeah, great feedback here.
Lovely, thank you so much.
I guess we'll have to bring you back another time. Yes, everybody's raving about you.
Thank you.
I don't know if you can see the comments there, Richard. But
oh yes, I can. Oh, lovely. Thank you very much, everyone. That's wonderful. But I mean, this is the thing. It is all standard PowerPoint, so don't blame the tool. Think about the way that you want to use it. This is about design, but also you need to tie that in with storytelling, with messaging, with visual sequences to make sure that your presentations are effective, which is ultimately what's important.
One attendee did say, just curious, what version of PowerPoint were you using in the presentation?
This is the latest version. So this is Office 365 or Microsoft 365. So it's the very latest version. But I think everything that I have shown you should be available in Office 2013 and later. So it's not like any of this is new. This is kind of classic design principles that should apply to any and all presentations, or indeed, anything else you're doing with PowerPoint for document design or reports and things like that, which I know people use it for.
Excellent. So any final questions? Lots of great comments though, but don't see questions.
Covered quite a lot, to be fair, so it might be a question of just going away, trying to use some of these things, and then as and when you try and think, how was that achieved again? There's the recording, which you can check out. There's the PDF guide with kind of step-by-step instructions of all of this. And, just get in touch. Feel free to chat either with us directly at Bright Carbon, info@brightcarbon, or I think Simon mentioned this at the end of his session last time as well. Check out the Presentation Guild. So presentationguild.org is, again, a great community of people exactly like you if you've not been part of it before. So I think all of us, Garland, Kurt, you're part of it. We at Bright Carbon are part of it. Simon is as well. Just like lots of people in the presentation industry all getting together to be able to share cool ideas and help everyone out as well. So there's lots of people out there to help you if you need anything.
Amar asked, thank you, really amazing. My question is, what would you recommend as rules when designing software simulation presentations? I'm not sure what he means, but
Oh, well, at that point, you probably need to try to reflect the software itself. So I would imagine a lot of screenshots and mocking up a lot of the content. If you are doing software simulation stuff, you can do some really neat things with hyperlink content over the top. So if we just go to a blank slide here, for example, and I, in a very meta way, tell you what, let's do this, take a screenshot of PowerPoint and put that in there like that. So you've now got this here kind of filling that screen. You now need something to happen. So probably you want to change the scaling, because you might want to consider people are doing this online or kind of on small devices. So maybe increase the scaling of all of this. And then you've got things like, well, if you want to show people doing like new slide, for example, here, you can click on that. Now I need to take a screenshot of that, which I can do there, and paste that in. And now you can use something called a trigger animation to try to bring this to life a little bit more by animating this. So that's going to be on a standard entrance animation. And then what I want to do is, because you've clicked on this new slide button here, is that I'm going to draw a little box over that new slide button. And this new second screenshot, I want to animate when you click on that little box, which is over new slide. So to do that, you can go to the animations tab on the ribbon and choose trigger over here on the right. And instead of that being a regular click animation, you can do on click of rectangle 6, which is this thing that I've just drawn here. And now this second screenshot will only appear when you click on that little box. Now, obviously having a little blue box there is annoying. So you also get rid of the outline and you get rid of the fill. And now you and I can't see it, but in PowerPoint mind, it's there. So now you've got your regular cursor, and then you can hover over that, that box, and then it's going to click on that box and it's going to trigger the second screenshot coming in. So you can start to do mock-ups of these kinds of things quite nicely, which is very good. And there's all sorts of different techniques there, but I'm not sure if that's entirely answers the question, but trying to make sure that people are engaged in it would be useful. And so, you know, you've got that box there. Maybe you also then want to, you know, highlight the fact that there is something going on here. So now you do something like this, where I'm going to add a little animation. One of the things we've got in this Bright Slide tool is an animation library where you can kind of have some funky things going on. And what I'm going to do is just have this with another grow shrink animation over the top of it, like that. Let's do an auto reverse on it and a smooth end, and maybe just 115%, and also reduce the speed of that. So what this should now do is that will come up, and it's popping there because it's encouraging you to click. I didn't do repeats. I just need to do repeats until next click. We'll do, and you need to get rid of it as well and hide it. But now this is popping. It's encouraging you to click there where the content is, and now you can click, and then that comes up. So it's like you're guiding people through all of that kind of content. I hope that that's useful. But again, it's like thinking about what is it that this standard tool PowerPoint can do to help you achieve your objective to communicate effectively with your audience.
And so Frank has asked, do some professionals use PowerPoint latest version to create web pages in collaboration with HTML codes, et cetera?
I wouldn't, partly because I don't know how to do web page stuff, but the little that I know about web pages means that you probably need to code it properly so that it loads. And I think as much as you can create nice graphics in PowerPoint, it's not going to create the HTML5 in an efficient manner. So you're probably better off using a standard tool.
You might be able to use PowerPoint as a wireframe, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can mock it up, you can storyboard it, definitely, but I probably wouldn't try to do the programming in PowerPoint, just because the user experience will be poor because it's not going to be optimally loading, I suspect, but I don't know.
And Noah asked, can you recommend a book or a website for more PowerPoint hacks?
I'm never a fan of books because they go out of date very quickly, depending upon what you want to do. In terms of websites, again, it's going to depend on what kind of hacks you want. So if you want all sorts of amazing coding and programming and the ability to get kind of live reports and stuff, you obviously check out the Presentation Point website, because that's really good. If you want lots of stuff on kind of productivity or design and visual storytelling, then you go to the Bright Carbon website. The best source is probably Google. It's a really good website to find what you want, and it does a really good job of finding things. And then you also look at various sources of people that share other stuff. So I suspect you go to Twitter and you follow the Presentation Guild on Twitter. You follow someone called Mike Taylor on Twitter. So if we just go to Twitter briefly and we search for Mike Taylor, so Mike T is really good here. So this guy here is superb as a curator of lots of really good stuff, and follow him and generally he's going to be really good at recommending stuff. And oh, there we are, he's already retweeted her. The next person I was going to suggest is Bianca Woods, so @egeeking, and so both of those guys are brilliant at like curating the kind of content that you might like. So, you know, Bianca here is tweeting PowerPoint Spice, and she's really good at doing all sorts of funky stuff. But just like follow people like that, and they will then direct you to really useful things, I suspect.
And Atanu says, please repeat how to get the Brightside add-in.
Brightslide is brightcarbon.com/brightslide. So this URL here, I think I can put that in the chat. There we go. And then you can just download that there, and it'll tell you all the different things that it will do if you're really mega keen.
And Sandra asks about screen recording for software simulation.
So again, screen recording you can do in PowerPoint if you want to. It's not as sophisticated as like a Camtasia, but if you go to the Insert tab on the ribbon, over on the right-hand side here, you can choose Screen Recording. And at that point, it will minimize your window so you can choose what area you want. I'll bring up PowerPoint in this case, and you can then choose to record. You can select a specific area or your entire screen. You can choose to toggle on or off your audio, and you can also choose to toggle on or off your pointer as well, so your cursor. And you hit record, it'll give you a countdown timer, 3, 2, 1, and then it will pick up everything you're doing and everything you're saying, and so you'll do all of that. Do Windows, Shift and Q to stop it, and you've then got a little video.
And then it will pick up everything you're doing and everything you're saying, and so you'll do a
MP4 file in PowerPoint. You can use that and manipulate it in PowerPoint, or you can right-click on it and choose Save Media As, and that will now save that out as a standard MP4 file for you if you want.
Great, and Enio asked, will we have access to Richard Goring's PDF tips, please? So there will be a recording of this video that will be put up, and Richard, I think you provided me with a PDF as well.
So this is the PDF. Gosh, there we are. So it's kind of relatively simple, you know, 20 pages, but there's, you know, link to Brightslide, for example, you can download it, and it just goes through. So this is the image cropping thing that we talked about. So kind of this is what you can do, and here's the cropping to zoom on images, and the idea of recoloring things if you want to, and just lots of different bits and pieces like that to show you kind of how each of these things work. And if you don't want to scrub through the recording, although, I mean, why wouldn't you? Because then you get all the interactions and the little mistakes and whatnot as well that I've made too. So bonus content, you can click and you can watch just a single little video tutorial on that particular bit, which is a couple of minutes long if you are mega keen for it. But this, and there's lots of different add-ins. I also talked about all the different photography, so lots of different websites there. And again, you can click on them and go to them as you see fit.
Fantastic. I learned so much, and everybody else did too, according to the comments. So it sounds like everybody loved it. So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Garland, for hosting and for putting this on, Kurt, as well, and to Presentation Point, and all of you for turning up. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks for coming. And we definitely look forward to having you again in the fall.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Linda, the PDF, are we sending that out with the video, Richard, or do you want, do they go to Bright Carbon for that?
And we don't host it, so we've made it for this. So if you want to send it out, that's great. Or if not, just email info@brightcarbon.com and we can send it to you. So whichever you prefer. Yeah,
Linda, so you can contact Richard that way, info@brightcarbon. So excellent. And that ends our conference. So thanks everybody for coming. I had a great time, even though I had to get up very early in the morning. You see daylight's finally breaking over here where I am, where it's now 7:15 a.m. So we're looking forward to hosting more webinars like this. So those of you who are presenters, feel free to contact me, garland@presentationpoint.com, if you've got a topic you think you might like to share. And we look forward to seeing you at our next larger conference, online conference in the fall. So I hope you've all had a great time, and let us know what you think. Yeah, lots of great comments in the chat. So I think you're muted, Richard. So.
But also not saying anything, so that's
okay. That's fine. No, you were muted.
Everyone was applauding.
Yes.
Okay.
Fabulous time investment. Thanks for the wonderful conference. That's great. We had a great time. Worth waking up early. So be great if you guys could host something for digital screen content. What would you mean by that, Jay? And we are very open to having additional, topics. Like, so if you throw topics at us, we'd be happy to go look for panelists who can teach that. Oh, what about the missed presentation? Any reply?
I thought that, oh no, maybe there's no one. Oh no, yes, the entire presentation points team knows that, don't they?
Yes, so the missed presentation, Frank, I haven't heard from Tom. I don't know if Kurt has, because I was busy tied up here. But yeah, Tom had to take his wife to the hospital today, so he was unable to present. So I had to do an extra presentation. I just pulled one I had on tap, but hopefully his wife's okay, and we'll know that, and hopefully we can get him to present at a later conference or at a webinar. So. Johan says, so we have to ask for the PDF if I understand well. Yeah, you can ask at info@brightcarbon.com. Let's see. Or if Richard sends it to me, I can add it to the add a link to where they can download it from when I send out the video.
I should have sent that to you the other day, Garland. Did you get
out? So when we post, when we post the video, we'll have the link to it in the comments there too. So. So we'll make sure everybody gets it. And we still have 57 people. Nobody's going back to work. Farouk says, I am late. Can I get a recording of this session? Yes, a recording will go out to everybody who registered for the session, and it will also be available on our YouTube channel, so you can access it there. So. Well, I'm not sure, Kamal, if they're a hardworking team of people, if they're hanging out in the webinars instead of going to do their work they're supposed to be doing. So maybe they're hard workers, diligently learning how to do better presentations, or maybe they're just, don't want to get on with the rest of their day.
We just need to let it all sink in. You've had 4 hours of intense, high quality.
Probably trying out stuff in PowerPoint now.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's scrambling to get that, downloading the Bright Slide app, and
yeah.
Wipe the day clean for this. Happy I did. Oh, great. So yeah, excellent seminar. Until next time. Yeah, great comments. So great to be able to see. Yeah, Jay says, great to be able to attend webinars while not being able to work. I noticed that, webinars, the attendance is much higher than in the past, and they become much more popular. Many more people are doing webinars at the moment, so. Multitasking, Miguel says. Yeah, have you ever heard about multitasking? It's a myth, Miguel. It doesn't work. I know this. You know what works? Deep focus. Learned lots, great sessions, very inspiring. I'd find it amazing how much I learn, even though I use PowerPoint every day. Like, I use it a lot, and I think I use it at a decently high level. I mean, I speak all the time, and then I listen to Richard and Simon, and I learn so much more, like every time. So it's just it's amazing how much there is out there, and how powerful it is, and what can be done with it.
Yeah,
it's inspiring. Yeah.
Tom's going back to work, going to do some logo design. Good job, Tom. We watch in one screen, work in the other. Yeah, I've done that with webinars too. Although these ones I was watching because I really wanted to pick up, the knowledge, right? But yes, I do that for other webinars. Of course, not for this one when I'm hosting and answering questions. But it's nice too. We have such a lovely group of presenters that we can tap. That Kurt's met for many years, and it has gone to the presentation summits and members of the presentation guild. So we've got lots of people that are really awesome about coming forward. Mark Hill, convinced me PowerPoint's still very relevant today. Well done for such a fun, informative job. Yeah, the tool is not the problem. The problem is how people are using it. The PowerPoint tool itself is incredibly powerful, can do amazing things, as have been shown here today by our presenters. So.
A car is not killing people.
Yes, it's a driver.
Yep.
Yes, Miguel's on board with that. He's been harping on that the whole time. Every time somebody talks about death by PowerPoint, but it is such a common phrase that we do need to work to beat that. Because there's so many things you can do with PowerPoint. Reports and pitch decks and so many different approaches with it. And Jay says, PowerPoint's a great tool for digital content, asked by a customer to promote a service for the National Health Service. He sent me the info, which I adapted for my screen through PowerPoint. Yeah, and we've worked a lot with PowerPoint for like digital signage and menu boards and all sorts of things that most people don't think of it, and it has a huge impact. And someone says, compare popularity of PowerPoint to ProPresenter. So, not sure. I haven't looked at ProPresenter. And we still have 36 people. We have to send them home soon, Kurt.
Yes.
PowerPoint's a great tool for slide docs. See Nancy Duarte's ebook. So yeah, and documents, it's kind of a no-brainer for us, but we started to even do some of our proposals and things in PowerPoint for Kurt and I, because it makes sense. We're showing off what PowerPoint can do. Why not create our proposals right in it? So. And Jude says he makes business reports on PowerPoint. Yeah, and I think I was showing some people earlier one of our case studies where a company was pulling together. They had an office in Denmark, an office in Israel, and they were pulling together information from like 5 or 6 different financial sources, pulling it all together in PowerPoint using our data point tool, and then creating the reports from that. Hope you can see the recorded video on YouTube soon. Yeah, we do have to do a little bit of editing on the downloads, the recordings, and put them up. And some of us who are up at 1 in the morning to do this may need some sleep first. So it could be a day or two. Is PowerPoint still the #1 presentation tool? What about Keynote? Thoughts? I mean, I think the numbers show that PowerPoint is used much more than anything else.
I think it is. I think you look at Keynote and it is limited to Apple products. So you can only have it on Mac or the iPad, which automatically limits it. And you think about most presentations are developed, created at least, on a computer. So it's like only 10% of the world's computers can run Keynote, as opposed to everyone can run PowerPoint. So that automatically limits it. And then in terms of its power as a tool, Keynote is good, and you can do some interesting things with it, but it's not nearly as good as PowerPoint. The problem with it is that Keynote, from PowerPoint's perspective at least, Keynote allows you to do what you can do with it very easily. PowerPoint, it's a little bit harder to try to dig into it, but once you do, once you kind of really start to understand it, you can do phenomenal things with PowerPoint that you can't touch with Keynote. And with Microsoft 365 or Office 365, the subscription service that Microsoft is now doing, the rate of development and the pace of change of PowerPoint and the improvements they're making are phenomenal. The last 3 or 4 years have been tremendous in terms of how they have advanced the product, whereas Keynote really hasn't seen any kind of major improvements in that time. It's kind of stayed flat. So it's like it's good, but it's not really getting much better. PowerPoint is better, although it's potentially a little more difficult to use, but getting even more kind of powerful all the time.
And Richard, PowerPoint is better because you have nice plugins like Bright Slide and DataPoint.
But yeah, I mean, exactly. You've got all of those things for it too.
Of course, that's why you need PowerPoint.
Yeah, and Apple tends to lock down their products. It's very hard to get add-ons for them, and the other alternatives like Google Slides and things are just not there yet. So.
Okay.
Time to shut it down.
I guess so. We have still 35 people on the list. Okay, thanks for the time. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the contributors like Simon and Richard and Garland for a special performance today, unannounced. So
Unannounced, no prep time.
Yep. So that was very well done. Thanks for your time, all, and bye-bye. Maybe Garland, you want to say something?
Oh, thanks everyone. I'm so glad you came. Look for future ones, and we'll see you again. And you know, do be in touch. And if any of you want to partner with us on programs, please do contact me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.